On behalf of the Partners in Sports Board, I would like to thank our speakers for taking time out of their busy schedules to be our panelists for this afternoon. I would also like to thank all of our attendees for coming to learn more about this important topic. Before we get started, we ask that everyone make sure you are muted and you have your settings set to speaker view to aid in being able to tell who the actual speaker is. And feel free to turn your cameras off. You don't have to keep them on for this webinar. Also, if you have questions throughout the webinar, please chat Cade Ramsey privately, and he will be keeping track of that throughout this, and we will have some times for question at the end. So we'll begin with some brief speaker introductions, and I'll hand it over to Brandy for the first one.
Thank you, Sydney. Hi, everyone. So I have the privilege of introducing our guest speaker, Ariel Massengale. Ariel is a former Lady Vol women's basketball player that competed under the guidance of legendary coach Pat Summitt from 2011 to 2015. After a stellar career at UT, Ariel was drafted in the 3rd round by the Atlanta Dream in the 2015 WNBA draft. Following her playing career, Ariel joined the staff at the University of Mississippi, where she served as a graduate assistant and earned her master's degree from 2017 to 2019. She is currently in her 1st season as an assistant coach and recruiting coordinator with women's basketball at Lipscomb University. So welcome, Ariel. We're glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Al Pelletier. I am also one of the other co-hosts today. I am introducing Jacques McClendon. So Jacques is a former football player here at Tennessee from 2006 to 2009, where he appeared in 49 games on the offensive line. He also completed his master's degree here at UT in the sport management department in 2010, which is the same year he was drafted in the 4th round of the NFL draft by the Indianapolis Colts. After spending a lot of years in the NFL, he now serves as the Director of Player Engagement for the Los Angeles Rams, and he also serves on the Knight Commission for Intercollegiate Athletics. So thank you, Jacques, for joining in today. We really appreciate you taking the time to be a part of our webinar.
Appreciate y'all having me. Go Vols.
Hi, everyone. I have Sarah Wilkinson. Sarah is a 2017 graduate of the Sport Management program here at UT. While here, she spent 3 years as a student manager with the Lady Vol women's basketball program. Sarah would go on to spend the next 2 seasons as a graduate assistant with women's basketball at the University of Florida while earning her master's degree. Prior to beginning her current position with the women's basketball program at Duke University as a special assistant, she worked as an intern with the Milwaukee Bucks. So thank you, Sarah, for joining us today.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
So how we're going to kind of operate all the questions today for the webinar. So we are going to go through and ask some of our questions, and then we're going to let each of you guys kind of talk about it. And then we'll move on to the next one just to make sure everyone gets a chance to answer the questions. So our first question for you guys is just to kind of explain a little bit more of your background for everyone. I know we kind of introduced you guys a little bit ourselves, but if you guys just want to give some background of where you came from and how you got to where you are now, doesn't matter who wants to start off, but everyone will get their chance.
Well, I'll go ahead and start it off. So Brandy, you did a wonderful job. Thank you for the introduction. I'm originally from Bolingbrook, Illinois, kind of played basketball all of my life. Sports has always been a part of my life, and kind of due to some injuries, my playing career was cut short. And in the process of trying to figure out what was next, I said, let's try this whole coaching thing. I had teammates and former coaches and friends who said I would be good at it, they thought. And so now I'm here. I've had the pleasure of working with great people, learning from a lot of great coaches. And so I'm just excited to give back what I have learned through the game of basketball, and also have an opportunity to play for Coach Pat Summitt. A piece of her isn't a part of me, and therefore if I can impact a quarter of the people that she has, I think my life will be a success.
Well, I can't follow up somebody who played for the late, great Pat Summitt. Rest in peace. It's unbelievable. I mean, being from Cleveland, Tennessee, the 2 biggest people in where I'm from are Coach Fulmer and Coach Summitt. So congrats to you on everything you've done to this point, and I hate to follow you up. But Jacques McClendon, Director of Player Engagement with the Los Angeles Rams. obviously East Tennessean through and through. Raised in Cleveland, Tennessee, about an hour south of Knoxville. And, I got to live the dream, right? I was the East Tennessee kid that got to run through the T and, be able to play for a Hall of Famer like Coach Fulmer is just like Ariel said, right? The lessons you learn on Neyland Stadium and on the practice field, they all qualify to the game of life. And so just forever thankful to be involved, but, played 7 years in the National Football League and was able to transition over to the athletic administration, area pretty quick. And I think that was due to the background and resources that I was provided as a master's student at the University of Tennessee. Whereas, while I was training for the draft, I was actually finishing my internship. So I was working out, from 8 to 12 in the morning and turning around and interning at the same place from 1 to 5, just trying to making sure I was getting my hours in. But, the professors on this call, are near and dear to my heart. So anyone within the program, definitely listen because there's a lot of resources available to you and look forward to this conversation today.
All right. Well, I'm Sarah. I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, and just want to give a shout out to the University of Tennessee because that's what really has molded me into the person that I am today and has opened up opportunity after opportunity for me and gotten me to where I am today. So like Jacques said, just listen to your professors, just take advantage of where you are. Tennessee is filled with special people and just you have so much at your fingertips. So I just encourage you to take advantage of that and really meet people, get out there, volunteer. I actually started as a event management intern my freshman year before I moved on to women's basketball. So you have to start somewhere. So start there, take advantage of it, just continue to meet people and you never know where it's going to take you.
And then our next question we have is, so for you guys, what does race and ethnicity mean to you and how have they played a role in your life in sports?
I think that's a good question. What it means to me, I guess, people a lot of times say, I don't see color, but like, I don't agree with that statement because I am an African-American woman and I'm proud of that through and through. The things that my parents, my family, my ancestors have done for me, that I have some big shoes to fill. And I don't take that lightly. I'm extremely humble for that. And kind of just what sports has meant to me and race and how that kind of plays a part. I've been on a lot of teams and played for a lot of coaches, and it's just allowed me to interact with a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, different upbringings, different beliefs. And kind of just being able to put the differences aside and find the likeness that is within all of us. All of our blood still bleeds red at the end of the day. And just getting able to learn. I played overseas for a year, so getting able to learn a different culture, and we're all different and we're all unique in our own exact way. And so just being able to take advantage of those opportunities and getting to know people and broadening my network and just being cultured overall.
I can't say much more, right? I think that one thing that I've learned in life is that because I played football as a Black male, it afforded me opportunities that I would not have had otherwise. And I'm not, I'm privileged in that manner, right? I look up at a lot of people that I grew up with, black females, Black males, they weren't provided opportunity. And that's because sports has provided me a platform for success. And that's a gift and a curse. Because right at the same time, there are people that are smarter than me, deserve way more opportunities than I did. But just because I was able to play a sport, get a scholarship, I'm a first generation graduate. My mother made $25,000 a year growing up. Without sports, I don't have much of anything. And so being a Black male, I don't take that for granted. And I think it's my duty as someone who has had some opportunities to give back. And so, you asked me what race, ethnicity mean to me. It means, it's who I am. And, what I would be without sport within race is not much. And so I don't take that for granted. So I think it's up for me to continue to, open doors for others and make sure that, people that look like me, whether they be male or female, are provided the same opportunities that I was provided. And, that takes a lot of work, a lot of networking, but, I'm willing to, put that on my shoulders and making my life's work.
So yeah, ethnicity is definitely a part of my identity. And I just personally, I don't let that hold me back. I think a lot of Black females specifically, or just females in general, they let that stop them from pursuing their dreams. But you can't let that happen. I think in my eyes, if there's barriers there, I love it. Why not break down the barrier? So I use it as motivation more than anything. But like these two have said, just it's your identity. So just keep going for it. Sorry, I'm tripping up. Just keep going for it no matter what.
All righty, moving on to the next question. Great responses from you guys. What is the most significant change you have seen in the past 12 months in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as social justice?
Well, I think the main thing is just the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders. The kind of the big thing was George Floyd, and it allowed for a lot of issues that we as Black people know because it's our everyday life. But I think it was able to be put on display for the rest of the world to see. And I think it calls for people to have conversations, calls for people to reflect, calls for people to think about their own lives. And I think that's kind of one of the best things about it, because these are issues that have been happening. But maybe if we didn't have a pandemic 3 years ago, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation right now. It would just be something that gets swept under the rug, kind of like a lot of things do. But I think this time and this space has allowed people to slow down. It's allowed people to see. We have the technology and social media where everything is at our fingertips now. I think it's allowed for people to learn, people to grow. It's no longer okay to be ignorant and to not know about the situation anymore. There are too many resources out there available. And then I've been very passionate about it and just been able to talk and discuss and, sharing with my current players. We are a majority, white team and have a couple of Black players, and kind of just making sure that they're taken care of mentally as well as physically, kind of going through this season. And so I think those are kind of the biggest things that for me that I've noticed.
I mean, I can't say much more other than an open ear, right? I mean, when you go through this pandemic, you have to listen. When George Floyd happened, it was, let's call it 48 hours to people in the streets until people were really having a conversation. And what I've seen over this past, let's call it 5 to 6 months, is that people are not hiding behind the excuses anymore. Because we've had this prolonged conversation, it's led to action. And, I literally, sorry that I was late, but I was literally on a call with the National Football League and their new senior vice president of diversity and inclusion, and talking about what we're doing from a league level to move the needle forward. And to think that it took to where we're at today for that hire to be made, I mean, that should tell you the significance of this time, of this moment. And so, when you think about how significant change starts, it starts with a conversation, but it also starts with open ears on both sides. And I think this is the first time in my lifetime that we've had that. When we talk about significant change, we're only 2 generations away from segregation, right? So at the end of the day, these conversations that we're having are relevant and prevalent because it wasn't that long ago till we all couldn't be on this Zoom together. So the moment is now, the time is now. And so we're going to look at this time 20 years from now. When we look back, we're going to say, hey, this either was the swing of the pendulum, the swing in the right direction, or we're going to say, hey, we missed another op. And just like Ariel said, I'm passionate right now. And so the time is now. And so together, let's move forward.
I would echo off of both of them, just saying there's, it's been talked about more, there's more visibility, more people listening, more people are open to listening about it. Obviously, some people still resist, but that doesn't mean like we can't stop there. I'm sure a lot of people posted the Black squares on their Instagram, and at first I liked it, but then I was like, to me, this just seems like a trend. And I just want to tell you guys, like, this is not a trend, this is our reality. So please don't treat it in that way. Like, I hope that there's effort behind the Black square, not just, oh, I'm posting this because other people are posting it, or, oh, I'm posting to my story because I saw this. Like, there have to be conversations happening and not just posting something on your Instagram or liking something. You need to use your voice because it's powerful. Use your voice in order to make a difference, because if you don't, then we're just going to stay the same.
Thank you all for your responses on that question. Is there anything your current organizations could do better in prioritizing social justice and awareness? And if not, what reasons may be holding them back?
I know a couple of things that we've done here at Lipscomb this year is over the summer, we kind of did social justice causes. So everyone on the team was able to pick a cause that is important to them and that's passionate to them or that they're passionate about, and do research on it and just learn and find ways of how we can get involved and how we can do things within our community. And we also made sure that all of our players were registered to vote. I think that was a big thing that a lot of universities are doing this year. And this call has been, I would say, a good reminder for me, because as I've been thinking through these questions and through these answers, and I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of, are we going to have a season? Are we not going to have a season? We're preparing for a practice, we're preparing for games, but we can't lose sight of the bigger picture. And I think this is a huge opportunity, especially for us in sports, to make a difference. We know that majority of our student athletes are African Americans. And I tell people all the time, like, nothing separates me from Breonna Taylor. That could have been me, and my life matters. And so making sure, like I said earlier, that our players are taken care of. And then I think we just have to continue to have the conversation. We can't forget about this, because like we've said that this is our reality, and we're the future of United States of America. And if we don't do anything about it, or we continue to sit and be quiet and not take action, then nothing's going to change. And so I appreciate you guys for this. And it's kind of like relit a fire in me that I'm like, oh, I have to find ways, I have to do more to make sure, even through a pandemic, that my players are still being educated, that they're still learning, that they're still growing in these areas, and that we're still showing unity within our campus and within our community.
Great question, but I think with this one, I'm gonna take more of an optimistic stance instead of a what can we do better, because I'm proud to be a Los Angeles Ram right now, as last year we were voted the most diverse organization within the NFL. And I don't say that for us to stand on our laurels. What I'm saying is just that allowed us a conduit, a catalyst for continued change going forward. Because we have been voted that, our leadership is willing to listen. Our leadership is wanting to push the needle, push the envelope, push the gas, and continue to move forward to what's right. Because I think that, asking what we can do better, we can learn. We're trying to capture that. We have leadership that truly, we're trying to create the best meritocracy possible here. Not perfect, but we're working on it. And just to be able to sit down with your president, GM, head coach, and have these conversations like I have, I know a lot of people don't have that, and I'm very thankful for that. So I'm optimistic in the times that what we can do better, we will do better. We're having those conversations. We started a D&I council within our organization that I'm on the advisory board of. We've done a lot of things, social justice with our players. We took a stance week one, did an organizational statement, let our players wear T-shirts pregame. We started a social justice fund within our players, within our locker room, so the guys can have their voices heard, and we can bless outlets within this LA community that we want to do that are backed by the players' causes. Like, we're trying to do what's right. I'm not saying we are, but what I'm saying is that, all my leaders are white Caucasian males. And so me as a black male, it's just optimistic and hopeful that I have three people that have seats at the table and that have the power to make the change, or willing to have the conversations to do that. Our GM called me, let's call it a day after the George Floyd. He called me and two other Black gentlemen within the organization. And he said, what can I do? And we actually, we challenged him. We said, what can you do is that you have the power to create access for ones that don't have it. And so he said, all right, let's get to work. And within 2 weeks, we started a scouting apprenticeship that has afforded 10 minority women and men the opportunity to get onboarding to the scouting world, and give them that apprenticeship, that one-on-one mentorship with a scout within our scouting department, to make sure that they're getting the necessary tools they need to be successful. So I'm just very optimistic that I know that a lot of organizations and a lot of people can't have the conversations that I can have, but it truly takes an ear and advocacy from the other side. So just blessed to be a Ram through these times, because like I said, we're not perfect, but we're striving forward and moving forward to try to do what's right.
So at Duke, I think we've done a really, really good job of being vocal to start with. So we held a peaceful protest, rally, whatever you want to call it, not too long ago. So I think there, Coach K, the men's basketball coach, he was vocal in that. Our coach, Kara Lawson, was very vocal as well. So I think because our leaders are being vocal, it helps us to feel more comfortable. So one of our biggest things is just to make an environment where our players feel comfortable to share and talk to us. our staff is pretty new. I've only been here since August. So just a very new staff, just trying to make our players feel comfortable. So we've done different things. As a team, we wanted to make sure they understand the history behind what's happening in our country. So we watched a PBS documentary series. We did four Tuesday nights in a row. We had team dinner and just watched the docuseries. So I think that was helpful, just to show them from an educational standpoint, this is why our country is the way that it is, because it was never fully healed. So that's why we're still broken. So I think, like I said, Duke has been really good. I think has set the bar pretty high. Like I said, from our leaders, and then just making our athletes feel comfortable. So.
Sarah, what was the name of the docuseries that you guys watched?
It's called Reconstruction. I can send you the exact name, Ariel.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
All righty, moving right along. Our next question. From where you stand, race, gender, coach, administrator, what are the two most pressing social justice issues permeating sport that we must address right now?
I would say the biggest one for me, kind of in my field, is representation and just having the opportunity. When I first started at Tennessee, I had 4 coaches that were all white, and it was a team full of Black girls. And I'll just be completely honest with you guys. When Pat decided to step down, Holly County came in and asked me, what did we need as a team? And I just straight up told her, I said, we need women and people that look like us. And there's nothing wrong with playing with them or for them. They were fantastic people, but they can't always relate to the things that we go through and that we experience on a daily basis. And she completely understood that. And she asked that question. Therefore, she wanted to know. She was curious, and she was willing to do whatever she could to help us to be successful. And she went out and got Kyra Elsie, who was a former Lady Vol, and Jolette Law, one of the best recruiters and assistant coaches in the country. And that kind of just changed for me as a woman, as a basketball player. They challenged me in ways. They were great role models to see them doing what they're doing. And now they're my mentors now, people that I can pick up the phone and call or reach out to at any time. And so I think, we know majority of our student athletes are African Americans, and we need to see people that look like us. I know kind of one thing that I experienced when trying to go and find a job was they're like, oh, well, you need experience. Well, I was a student athlete. I played basketball all my life. It's not like I really worked, but how am I going to gain experience if no one takes a chance on me? And that's why I admire my head coach right now, and because she's an African-American woman, and she's the first Black one that Lipscomb University has ever had. And in our entire athletic department, there are only 5 African-American people, and 3 of them are on the women's basketball team. And so I think when we get in those roles and we work our way up, is reaching back and bringing people along so that we can continue to inspire and encourage and uplift those that look like us to give those opportunities. Sarah's kind of the same way with Kara Lawson and having the Black female head coach and her having the opportunity. And now we're able to learn from them. We're able to use our platform. We're able to grow our program. And so that's kind of what our focus is, and something that I'm proud about.
I got to follow that up. Man, I love the energy. That's what I'm talking about. Because I'm going to double down, right? I think that the most pressing issue, honestly, is the suppression of the Black woman in athletic administration, be it be coaching, be it be athletic director, be it be at the president level. I do see a lot of representation. I do see white women, I do see white males, and you do see some Black males. But the Black female is completely suppressed when it comes to athletic administration. We need to change that. And so, where do we stand? There's some things that we must address now, is that we got to look at the data, we got to assess, because it's telling all the stories. And just as Ariel said, representation is the problem. I think we got to do a better job of creating diverse pipelines. I can't have the CEO of Wells Fargo sitting here saying there's not enough Black talent in America when there is. It's just you're not casting a wide enough net. And I think that, when you ask me, I'm just tired of companies making excuses that they're not out there. If they're not willing to cast that net, We got to find creative ways to bring the talent to them so they can see it, that it's right in front of their face, and that, you know, one day we'll have a meritocracy where we're not having a conversation to where we have to give you an opportunity because you're colored. No, we're giving you an opportunity because you're the right candidate for the job. The Washington football team hired the first Black president in the National Football League. His name is Jason Wright. But what I can tell you is that he didn't get the job because he was Black. He got the job because he was the right candidate and the best candidate for the job. And so until we can get at a place to where that's what we're saying, and not that he was the first Black president, we still have work to do. So I think we got to continue to double down, figure out HR best practices, so we're creating diverse pipelines, and, you know, we're having accountability behind it. You know, at the NFL league level, you know, I'll say it right here, I'm not a huge fan of the Rooney Rule, and the reason is because there's no accountability behind it. You can interview people all you want, but there's no accountability whether you don't hire anybody or if the numbers aren't, you know, I mean, right now I think we're at, excuse me if I'm a little off, I think we're at 3 head coaches, 2 GMs, in a league where 70% of the athletes, around 70% of the athletes are Black. We have a representation issue, right? So just as Ariel said, we got to continue to break down these barriers and have these tough conversations. And the time is now while we got ears.
It's really hard for leaders to make decisions about African-American athletes when there's no diversity in the leadership roles. So that's where the problem is. There needs to be more diversity in the leadership roles, the people who are the decision makers, who are making the decisions about these athletes who are mostly minorities. So like Jacques said, NFL, NBA, I mean, we can talk about all the leagues. There's an issue there. So until there's better representation, I don't really see a change being made. So yeah, Black females need to be better represented. So college level, pro level, everywhere. That's what needs to happen. I say that's the biggest issue.
And I'm sorry, one thing just to kind of close on that. It's not that we want anyone to leave the table or remove anyone from the table. We're just asking people to make room for us and to give us a space and that equal opportunity so that we can have a seat at the table.
Going off of that question and that point, what can we do as current sport managers, up and coming sport managers, do to ensure sustained momentum toward actual change? And is there anything your organization is doing specifically?
I think we have to just continue to have conversations, continue to be a listening ear. My dad says all the time that we've been wanting to have this conversation for 400 years. And now that we finally have the ears of people, like, we're excited to talk about it. So don't ever feel like embarrassed or that someone's going to be upset about it. Now, some people might, that's just people for you. But I think majority of us are going to be excited. Like, I want to talk about this. I want to share my experiences with people. I want to share them with people that look like me. And I want to reach back and give people opportunities, the same opportunities that I had, if not better. And so we're kind of essentially paving the way. And we just know that we can't stop. Like, we are just getting started, and we have so much further to go. And I think we just got to continue to fight the good fight.
I mean, I completely agree, but I think one thing, and I'll add on to that, is that, you know, if you're not a minority, be an advocate of minorities. I think the one thing that I found, you know, as we continue to move this needle, it's not me sitting here telling you everything that I think is wrong. It's you wanting to ask me what's wrong and being willing to change it with me. That's what I tell my leadership, right? Is that, you know, I can't do it without you. I'm just an angry Black man if I keep screaming, right? But if we do this together, if we can figure this out together, we can move forward together. We can put policies in place, because that's what it's going to take, guys. We need policy changes. Until we get to a point to where we're at a true meritocracy, we're going to have to put systems in place to fight the systems that's broken, that's shutting us all out of shutting us all out where we should be right now. So, you know, we need advocates, we need allies, and, you know, as you, I know one thing that we're doing here, right, is, you know, with the NFL, they have the Black Engagement Network. So we create affinity groups, employee resource groups that, you know, we're all have that safe place where we can have conversations. So, you know, if there's student-led groups that you all can get together and have these tough conversations, because as the future of the sports management, sport practitioner world, y'all are the change. And honestly, the way this thing's positioned in terms of the climate of today, and you and everybody on this call wanting to listen, wanting to learn, this place is already going to be a better world in 20 years than it was 20 years forward than it was 20 years back. I just would challenge everyone on this call not to let this thing fall on deaf ears, is to let's get it to a world where we create a true place of equality. And, you know, we're talking about the Black community right now, but I mean everybody. I'm talking Black, brown. I'm talking about race, gender, religion. I think that, you know, as we look at a world that, you know, everybody's not the same. It's not a one size fits all approach. And there's so much talent everywhere. And I think that, you know, as we become a more broader connected country through technology, there's no excuse not to go out and find all this talent. I mean, think about this. Think if this pandemic would have happened in 2010. FaceTime wasn't ready. Zoom wasn't ready. Internet capable, but now we've been able to stay connected somewhat via Zoom, via Microsoft Teams, because technology allows us to do that. So when your HR people tell you there's not diverse candidates, no. That just means they're lazy and don't want to cast a wide net or take advantage of the technology that's at play. So I think that we just got to continue to challenge each other to be better, because it is truly going to take all of us. And I'm just glad, well, we got 195 people on this call. I'm just glad that we got 195 people willing to listen, willing to make a change, and willing to go forward together.
I think that you need to be around diversity in order to truly understand what those people are going through. So it's hard for you to sit back there and, okay, maybe your friends are all white and not make an effort to expand and get other friends. So how are you going to understand what we're really going through if you're not making an effort to actually learn? So I thought after the George Floyd thing happened, and a lot of my family, I'm actually adopted, so my family is majority, actually they're all white. So just a little background. But so my family and my friends, they started texting me in these long messages. And I was just like, what? To me, I was like, this is crazy, because it seems like their eyes are just now being opened, whereas this is my reality, so I go through it every single day. So I kind of laughed every time I got a text, because I was like, I've been dealing with this for the past 20 something years, but they're just now seeing it. So for those of you who really do want to learn and get better, like, just educate yourself. That's the best thing you can do. And then also learn like what questions are actually appropriate and what's not appropriate. Like, you don't want to use stereotypes or anything like that. So really that's where the education comes. There's plenty of books out there, documentaries, go on Netflix. Like if you're bored one night, there's just plenty of stuff to get out there to learn. So like I said, until you're around diversity and immersed in it, like it's going to be really hard for you to truly understand it.
Before we go on to the next one, I have a question that kind of follows up with what you guys just said about us just having that conversation and be willing to do stuff. So what was your initial kind of reaction when we had asked y'all to be a part of this webinar? Like, what was going through your head kind of when we said we wanted to do something like this?
Oh, okay.
Oh, go ahead, Sarah. You got it.
Honestly, I was very excited and honored to be asked to do this. So like Ariel said, we get so busy, with the hustle and bustle of the season. Like, I can't believe it's already November, that we were so passionate about Black Lives Matter and stuff like that over the summer when it first started happening. And then we just get so busy with work that, obviously we're still passionate about it, but just it kind of took a back seat. So when I got that email, I was like, oh yeah, like, this is awesome. Like, I love that Tennessee is doing this. I love that they're reaching out to alumni to get them to talk to current students. So I was excited. I was excited that that you all took that step and wanted to have the conversation. And I was happy to be chosen to share a little bit of my story and why this is important to me and why this is important that we continue this conversation.
You got it.
Okay. I was excited. I was extremely honored because, like I said earlier, this is something that has been like a recent passion of mine that I've kind of enjoyed discussing and talking about. But then, kind of in that next thought, I was like nervous. I was like, these diversity, equity, and inclusion, what does that mean? I'm like, Sarah, I called Sarah. I was like, what are we going to say? And then once I got the questions from you guys and started thinking more about it, and I was like, oh, this is my reality. Like, this is what I live every day. These are the obstacles that I've had to cross to get to where I am now. And this is just me being able to reach back and give back and help someone else who may be doubting whether or not this is something that they want to do. I'm in a place now where hopefully as I move up in my career or, wherever God leads me next, that I can reach back to former Tennessee people, because I know that you are doing the right thing. You guys are putting in the time, you're educating yourselves, you're learning, you're understanding how important this topic is and how important it is to sports and to our country as a whole. And so reach back and get those people that are like-minded and think like you. But ultimately, I was extremely excited. Dr. Harden, I see Lizzie on here, Dr. B. Miller, like some of my favorite people, and to be able to, be out of school as many years as I have and still be able to have those relationships. Like I was calling Lizzie when she was at Tennessee, when I was at Ole Miss trying to get my master's degree, and she was willing to help me and talk to me late at night, send me emails, review papers that I was doing. And so like Sarah said earlier, just continue to take advantage of these resources. They're there. And looking back, I wish I would have done more with my time at Tennessee. I think, as athletes, we get caught up sometimes like, okay, I'm gonna play these 4 years and then I'm going to the league and I'm just gonna play. And I thought I was going to play for a long time. God had other plans. I got bad knees and I couldn't do it anymore. And it's like, man, what's next? So I think the fact that you guys are there with these resources, take advantage of everything. Like find something, get involved, talk to as many people as you possibly can, get out and meet people, maybe just stop by in someone's office. Like there are so many people there at that university that are willing to help you. If you just, step out on faith, ask the question, just be bold about it. So
first thing that came to mind to me, honestly, so I serve on the Night Commission for Intercollegiate Athletics as well, and I'm the co-chair of our Racial Equity Task Force. And one of the big things that we're doing right now is talking about the student athlete experience. And I think that, it's just like Ariel said earlier, as you go forward, as you're playing, like all you think about is football and you got this tunnel vision. And then finally, I guess what would have been for me, 7 years after playing NFL, I finally got out of that tunnel and I look back and I think about my student athlete experience. By the way, it was fantastic. But I think from a representation standpoint, I think Tennessee was something like, 5 to 6% Black while I was there. And you marry that with the student athlete population, and that's probably 80% of it. It's 50%. I'm just putting a number out there. But I just think that I am way more aware nowadays than I was back then. And so what I want to do and why I'm excited to have this conversation is to continue to bring light that there are a lot of people that get left in the blinders, because I just saw what Ariel put in the chat. Like the system's not broken. It's actually set up how they want it to work. And I think that, as a former student athlete, we got to do better just as a whole, empowering our athletes beyond the field. And I was blessed that I had people that, pointed me that way. I went to the affluent high school where, you saw people driving BMWs, but I tell people to this day that, that experience changed my life, right? As somebody who had to buy their own first car, had to work for it, I'm going to class with people who were, third generation wealth. And what it taught me is how to think differently, how to think more forward, how to be, I guess the word would be strategic with the way that I go about my business. And, I get to Tennessee and a lot of my counterparts didn't have that experience. And so I always try to go out of my way to put, my counterparts on, up to speed on some of the things that they can be doing other than playing sports that can really help them. And so I think that the first thing that came to mind is that, you talk about Tennessee, 6% population with a big chunk of that being the student athletes there. So it's just great to have these conversations, because the Black experience at a PWI is completely different for a Black person. And I think you don't know that till you've been through it. So was just great and ready to have this conversation. And like I said, I'm the least accomplished person on this panel. So I'm just happy to be with these two accomplished women.
And then kind of going off that again, I have a little one that I'm going to sneak in here before we get to our last one. But I know, Ariel, you kind of mentioned it a lot about like how much you love like having the voice and being having an opportunity like this to kind of like talk about it. So for all of you guys as well, how much do you embrace the voice that you are given to like discuss these issues because of your role in athletics specifically?
Ooh, I take it as a huge responsibility. As Jacques just talked about, kind of like being a student athlete, African American at a PWI. And you see a lot of coaches now, like we have to be the voice for our student athletes. There's just kind of no other way around it. And so I've been willing to take on that challenge. There are things that I'm trying to do currently now, like in the process of working with different people and trying to educate myself and kind of do my preparation and do my research so that I can go to my head coach and give suggestions of different things that we can do, because I do think it's extremely serious. Of course, we know like with the election and stuff, like not trying to hyper politicize anything, but I mean, let's just be real. Like this is what we're going through. Our country is divided right now. And kind of from the beginning of time, sports has been that one thing to bring people together, regardless of race, religion, background, economic standards or anything. And so I take it, my dad actually told me this morning, like, God gives his strongest battles to his best soldiers, and if he has put me in this position to use this voice, then he's going to carry me through that. And then I have nothing to worry about but to stand on that and to speak my truth. Is how I feel. It's reality, is what we're experiencing. And then just being able to speak for those who cannot. And that's what I'm trying to do, hopefully to make it a better place for them in the long run.
I mean, I think it's the exact same thing, right? I think that, we just got to continue to move forward, pace forward. But I mean, Ariel knocked that one out the park, so I'll pass it to Sarah.
Like Ariel said, I don't take it lightly at all. I think because of the role I'm in, I'm on a new staff at a brand new place, so I'm still trying to figure out from that aspect. But at the same time, all of this stuff was happening with social justice. So I think for me, I have to look past. I get caught up in, oh, I'm pretty young, like, I'm only 25 years old, so I think that's what gets in my head the most. But I've had to tell myself, actually recently, last week to be exact, that it doesn't matter that I'm young. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and I need to be a voice, and I need to use my voice to be a leader. Because how am I going to be a leader if I'm afraid to use my voice and share my opinion? So I just try to set a good example for our players, and it's been easier for me because I'm under the leadership of an amazing African American female. So seeing her speak out and use her voice, it makes it so much easier for me, and gives me the courage to use mine. So it's a big deal to me. So like I said, just trying to use my voice and set a good example for our players so that they can do the same thing. So actually our players wanted to talk to some youth in the Durham area about the social justice issues going on. So last weekend, we were able to make that happen. So the police chief of Durham is actually an African-American female. So she came and we had a group of about 10 young girls, and our players talked to them. They asked questions, they were able to answer, broke off into some groups. So it was great. So it was awesome to see, because they see us using our voice and talking about everything going on. They're like, okay, we want to do the same thing. And they did it for the youth. So just using our voice to speak up for those who can't, I think that's very important.
All righty. Great answers. Like that a lot. So our last question before we kind of take questions from anybody else. What can sport management programs be doing to prepare future sport management professionals to value diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as social justice? For instance, how valuable is something like this webinar in promoting awareness?
I think one thing we can all do actually is just continue to educate ourselves. And as you know, it's not kind of cliche, but be the change you want to see. And so we are all aware of this. And now it's kind of on us is what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do with this information that we know? What change are we going to make? How are we going to leave our legacy in this world? And I think another big thing is like, this has been an issue for a long time. And we have to understand that change is not going to happen overnight. And just because you can't change a whole state or a whole country doesn't mean that you can't change your family or your friend group or, you know, your work environment, people that you see on a daily basis. Start small. And if we can reach one and then they reach another, I think that's where change becomes and where change happens.
I completely agree, right? I think that as you go down this space, and like what I've had to keep myself from doing is, one, remove your own bias. Try to meet what the facts are. And so, you know, when I'm in on these conversations, I go in from a very much data driven, hey, this is what needs to change because, hey, this is what the data says. Because I think what happens is sometimes we get so caught up in our own emotions that it can take you too far to too right left. Because at the end of the day, the truth lies somewhere in the middle, and we've just been too far on the wrong end of the spectrum for too long. And so I think that, you know, as I look to things that sports management programs can do, I mean, I got this quote from James Baldwin up on the board, and it says, not everything is faced that can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And so right now we have the opportunity to face what needs to be changed. And, you know, I saw the chat box say, you know, the Tides report and looking at that data and just listen to that and really digesting that. And it's showing you where the flaws were. You see the WCCC who just enacted the Russell rule in order for Bill Russell and make sure that they're hiring more diverse candidates at the administration standpoint. But, you know, I think that truly what it's going to take is that, hey, we continue this conversation and, you know, I think it's just as small as Ariel said, like, it doesn't mean you have to be, you know, protesting in the streets. It could be just as little as somebody says something racist or biased, and you may not have held them accountable 6 months ago. Start now, because it's not okay. And it's not going to change until those little tiny microaggressions, those tiny problems that we're holding them accountable now, and it's going to change. You know, maybe it changes when they go home. How do they react with their dad, mom, husband, kid, or whomever it may be, right? I think it all starts with that small change. So, you know, we all got a lane in this fight, no matter what your color is. We just got to pick it, own our turf, and continue to dominate it, man. And that's one thing our GM says is that we all have roles, and we got to dominate our roles, and we all have a role in this race. So I say everybody just figure out what that is, choose it, dominate it, and like Ariel said, keep it small, because if you make it too big, it will get overwhelming. But if we all do our little part, we'll make a big change.
I agree with both of them. It's so important to just continue the conversation. And like Jacques just said, I think when all this started happening over the summer, I took it too big, and it was overwhelming. Like, it took me a week to like calm myself down and be like, okay, Sarah, where can you start? So just start small, and everyone's approach is going to look different. So just because your best friend wants to go protest out in the streets and you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. You can protest in your own way. So just figure out what works best for you in terms of getting awareness out there, and like we said this whole time, continuing education. But if you're silent, someone else is going to be silent. But if you speak out, someone else is going to see that, and they're going to get the courage to speak out too. So just continue the conversation, and don't be afraid to use your voice.
Cade, would you like to go ahead and we can kind of open it up to some questions from everyone else? If anyone else has any questions that they would like to ask, make sure you just send Cade a message privately in the chat, and we will try and get in as many as we can.
Yeah, our first question is from Alyssa Hayes, and she was just wondering, in what ways can sports organizations create and add equity?
I'll tell you right now, it's got to start with leadership, because at the end of the day, we can come up with all the ideas that we want to. If the hearts of the leadership aren't pure to truly interject change, it's just not going to happen. So I'll give you an idea of what I did. This past off season, it was finally my first opportunity to add an assistant, and I wanted to be very targeted with how I added that assistant. So in my first role, in my first fellowship, I strictly made it to where it was only an HBCU student. And I use the pipelines at the National Football League that has been created by the Career in Sports Forum and all the other activations they do with HBCU to grab a list of candidates. And you know, we all went through the HR process. I interviewed him, our HR interviewed him. We got it down to 3. We ended up hiring Jalen Williamson, who's a graduate of Hampton University, former quarterback, and he's doing a great job. And you know, it's just one little thing, but hey, this was an opportunity to give somebody that deserved a chance that didn't get it. They finally got their chance, and he's thriving, and hopefully his career will forever be different. And, you know, that's just one small thing, but you know, without leadership that would allow me to do something like that, it doesn't matter what idea I come up with. So I think we truly need to see it need to be better positioned from an executive leadership standpoint, because until it's positioned there where we put policies and people in place that truly care, all the talk doesn't matter. It's got to be granular. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be real. And so what sports organizations can do from a global standpoint, the governing bodies of these leagues can put together policies and procedures that holds these clubs accountable to make sure there's more equitable hiring practices. Because until that happens, it's going to continue to be the same old song, the same old hamster wheel. So you know, that's literally, like I said, just left a call as I joined this, as the National Football League's been, you know, figuring that out, and we're going to continue to figure it out, and we're going to bring some teeth to some of the things we've done in the past. But you know, it starts with leadership allowing the autonomy to do what's right for humanity, and what's right for humanity is that we have diverse, equitable, inclusive opportunities, because the data shows that the more diverse and inclusive your organization is, it is the better, because that's just more thoughts at the table and less things can fall through the crack that way.
Yeah, he did that. I don't have anything to add.
Next question, please.
And our next question is from Camilla. And she's just kind of wondering, you're in an interview, you're dealing with an interviewer who's closed-minded and isn't really with everything with equity, diversity, and things like that. What are some questions or points you can bring up to those people?
I'll take this. I don't think, honestly, I would be scared to bring up any type of questions, but I think from an interview standpoint, I definitely think about, okay, I think about my hair in terms of presentation, how I should look for an interview. And I know that a lot of Black females feel similarly. So I'm like, okay, I feel like I need to straighten my hair to make it look perfect. So I think more than anything, our culture needs to change and make it known that it's okay for our hair to look any way that it is, because my hair is not naturally stick straight. It's actually like an afro. So I think just like there needs to be a better understanding of it's okay for us to look like ourselves, because I don't think that our culture accepts that very much, because people make a big deal when someone has braids in or someone puts weave in or something like that. Just everything's talked about. So unfortunately, we do live in a white world, so straight hair or whatever is kind of the norm. But just, you know, again, this is an education thing, just kind of learning like what is normal for African Americans and just allowing them to feel comfortable to where they can be themselves at an interview. Because at an interview, you're already nervous. So the last thing you want to be worried about is, oh my gosh, are they accepting me for how I look? So that's what I'll say about that.
I'll go as well. I think that I think she's completely correct. And one thing I would tell you is probably not to ask the person, if I'm understanding the question right, if the company is racist or if there's racist at that point in time. But I do think when you are being interviewed or you're interviewing someone, you're always taking an assessment, right? And so at the end of the day, if you're that person that's being interviewed, presentation is everything. But you got to be willing to leave that interview knowing that that company or organization that you're going to work for aligns with your morals and principles and values. Because if they don't, I can promise you that marriage between you and that company organization is not going to last long, right? So I think that you ask indirect questions, but I think that most of the time what your gut says is probably right, right? Because that's the one opportunity you get to get in front of someone, and it's a very uncomfortable situation. But if they don't make it comfortable for you, one, two, if they give you snide remarks or looks, if it's a duck and it's quacking, it's a duck. And then number three, right? If your gut's telling you that something doesn't feel right, you got to be willing to walk out on an opportunity. And I know that's a hard thing to talk about, especially right now in the pandemic, but alignment is everything. And you're not going to bat 1,000. You're going to be wrong about some people. That's just the reality of life. But making sure that you've done your pre-work, and you read articles that have come out on that organization or team. You look at who you're interviewing and seeing what their history is. I mean, Google's a heck of a thing. I mean, 30 years ago, they didn't have the opportunities that we had, that you can find anything you want with one click of the button. But, just making sure that you're aligned, because if there's no alignment, there's going to be no equity. And, it's probably going to end up, in a divorce quicker than you think. So I think just doing your pre-homework is the most important thing in that position.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Do your research. If you know someone who has worked with the company or been with them or in partners with them or something, I think just talk to as many people as you can and try to find enough information on the organization that you can, so that you fully know what it is that you're getting yourself into. And like Jacques, I heard someone say on a conference I listened to a couple weeks ago, it's like, don't be afraid to say no to opportunities. Like, every opportunity is not the right opportunity. And I think you have to be able to, be able to sleep at night, and you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror every day that you wake up and know that you're not like selling your soul just for a paycheck, because there's more to life than that.
Our next question is from Alante Bateman. I know you guys were talking about representation earlier. What percentage of athletics should minorities represent in college administration and leadership? For example, in the Power Five with athletic directors and head coaches, football specifically, there it's less than 11% of African Americans, when there are over 60% of the student athletes are minorities.
Well, let's just start with this. It just needs to get better. So I don't know what that exact number is, but one thing that I don't want, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, I'm not trying to create Black supremacy. I'm trying to create equality across all. But where we're at right now, in the world where there is a lot of Caucasian representation in these positions, we got to get better. So I don't think there's a direct number, but I think there should be a correlation of representation based upon student athlete population to how many people within a let's call it a conference or a team has the ability to have more representation at the top. And I mean, I can't imagine that number's over 5% in Power 5 football right now. I mean, we got to get to 10%, then 15%, then 20%. So I don't want to say, hey, tomorrow we should have 75% Black head coaches. I think that we need to be targeted, and this thing's going to take time to change. So I don't like having a hard number, but I do think that if we can use like we said earlier, like the Tides reports, we can see how the Russell Rule works with the West Coast Conference. Like if we can put systems in place to interject change, I think that we need to have a slow grow over time, but it's got to be measurable and it's got to be sustainable. That's what I tell a lot of people as we go through some of the talks we've been having right now, right? Is like, I'm not looking for a sticker shock. So I'm not looking for us to, hey, we have a 1 year big growth and then 2 years, you're right back down, right? And we're looking for something that's sustainable and accountable. And so we're at a point to where there needs to be more Black representation. But what it's going to take is, I'll call out the SEC, right? Like we need to make it, and it needs to happen at that level. It needs to be the commissioner saying we need to have accountability. And when you interview somebody, we need it published. We need to stop hiding behind search firms. It needs to be public. We need to know you did it. We need to know it was meaningful. And so if we keep the old boy system in place, we're not going to have any change. So I think we just got to continue to move the needle by building systems that are sustainable.
I like that. And just to add, since he called out the SEC, I have to say in women's basketball, I think we have 6 Black female head coaches. And that's the most of any Power 5 conference, period. I don't even think the Pac-12 has any. And so we need more of that across the globe.
they handled it pretty well.
And this question comes from Vicky Williams. As the faculty member teaching in a sport management undergrad program, I'm interested in what types of courses may lead to a better understanding of cultural differences that would serve as teachable moments for future sport managers.
I think maybe we just have diversity, equity, and inclusion classes. And you literally break down those words and what they mean and what they look like within athletics and kind of talk about the numbers, stay with the facts and where we are now and where we need to go. And I think kind of just compare. And that's also going to educate people on the term, and people will know. And then you also see the importance behind the issue, and then be able to find and formulate ways. And so when you're going into those job interviews, you're also bringing solutions to the problem of, hey, I would like to do X, Y, and Z if I were to have this position to help you all in these areas.
And this question is from Eric. What is your response to the shut up and dribble response to athletes speaking out against these injustices?
Sarah, you got that one.
I'll just say that I think it's important for athletes to use their platform in the way that feels comfortable to them. So if they feel comfortable to use their platform to speak out against issues, then I think that should be acceptable. So I get that our country, the history of it is they've used sports to get away from the reality of life. So that's fine. But the reality is that these athletes, especially minorities, are dealing with all of this stuff and racism and everything going on. So they feel like their best way to reach our country is to use their platform in that way because they know people are watching. So I think that it's fine for them to use their platform in whatever way they'd like to. It's bigger than sports, honestly. It really is. So if people have a problem with that, then I don't really have anything else to say to them.
And I'm right there with you. Sorry about that. I think I forgot to pay my internet bill over here at work, man. They cut me off. Make sure that check cleared next payroll. Oh, no, I might be getting fired. I think one thing, I want to go back to the education question because that really hit me. So I've been, obviously trying to stay informed and trying to really, as I'm bringing stuff to the table, want to make sure that it's, informed and not just my bias when I talk to people within our organization, because I do think the education and informing people is key. And so the biggest case study I found is you look in Germany. In Germany, in the 3rd and 4th grade, they teach their kids about the Holocaust. They don't hide behind it. Other than giving us the shortest month of the year, what Black history do you see in history books in elementary school? Not much. And one thing that we had to do this year as a league is I had to institute anti-bias and anti-racism sessions across our entire organization. We worked with a group called Rise. Diane is the soul of that organization. She's the CEO and she is the salt of the earth. If you're looking for education, I would reach out. They are phenomenal. And I think that we got to find a way to make that more robust, because to make this more normal in the workplace, to make this more normal in life, we need to see why we're here. Because I truly think there's a lot of people that don't understand because they haven't been informed. So just like I said, when I go in these meetings and something may come across that I don't like, I got to take my Black man mask and leave it back there somewhere and have my employee mask and say, whoa, they're just not informed. You got to give them the benefit of the doubt. But we can't make that excuse anymore. We got to find platforms and opportunities to inform everyone. And so I think that Rise does an unbelievable job. I include it on my rookie sessions every year because I think it's important, because one thing that football in general I know allows is that you know, it's not of the world. If the world was more like the locker room, it wouldn't be a perfect place, but it would be a better place in terms of understanding, because you see 11 men from a bunch of different cultures, religions, races come together for one common good. And, you know, it's never perfect, but I truly believe there's some power into that. But I think that football teaches you that lesson. So the to not see color, just like Ariel said when she was, you know, earlier in the conversation at Tennessee, is because sports teach you that. It's a unifying power. But what are we doing when we leave practice, when we leave the field? You know, we're not holding people accountable. We're not becoming more informed on what the problems actually are. So I think that we need to continue to educate people, because I think it is very important that I can't hold you accountable if you haven't been taught what's right, because some people just haven't. And so I think that it's lazy for me to be mad, but it's harder for me to try to educate you on why I'm mad. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to do as we walk down this lane is it's a two-way street. And the people that want to listen, because what I'll tell you, one thing that I found out, if somebody's racist or biased to their core, you're probably not changing them, just to be completely honest with you. They are who they are. But one thing you can do is you can help the ones that want to listen, and you can help the younger generations as they aren't so jaded yet. So I think education is key, and I think it should start as early in elementary school with how do we have some reform around what's taught in history classes, because a lot of people don't understand why we're here because they're never taught it. So I think that is a very big element as we go down this road.
I kind of would just say, to piggyback off all that, like nobody tells accountants to shut up and do numbers. No one tells janitors to shut up and clean. So why are you gonna tell an athlete to shut up and dribble? We're more than that, and I think a lot of things is, with student athletes in their identity crisis, and we are more than our sport. And I think that's kind of the transition I've had to make from being a student athlete to now being in the workplace, that I'm more than just a basketball player. There's more to me than that. You know, I had no intentions. I hated school. I'll just be honest. I had no intentions of getting a master's degree. And look at me now. So continuing to like educate ourselves, putting ourselves in the best positions to where you have to give me an honest look. You have to respect me because I've done the work and I've put in the time to speak on these situations.
And we've got one more question from Julie Anderson. She currently serves as the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Liaison for an organization on campus. And she's struggling to get some people in that organization passionate about change. So other than these tough conversations, what are some ways to get people passionate about implementing changes at Tennessee?
All right, I guess I'll take it. To be completely honest, if you want to see change, you got to be willing to lose something. And guys, don't take this the wrong way. I'm not saying go across the streets and go march down Neyland right now. But what I am saying is that you are going to have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. And that may be a letter to the president. That may be a letter to a professor that you've seen do something wrong, whatever that may be. But what I will tell you is that you have to come correct. Because one thing that I've learned is having these talks as well is that your margin of error is very small in doing what's right. We do have people ears, people are listening, but you have to make sure you're saying the right things to keep them listening. And so what I'm not telling you is to come mad, come angry, but what I am telling you is to come informed with data, with actionable change that you can see happen. So you got to be willing to lose something. And you know what? You may lose a relationship with somebody who says, hey, I don't back you on that. Well, guess what? They don't align with your morals anymore. So guess what? You lost the relationship right there. So one thing that I found, and I'll be completely honest with y'all, there's a lot of people I don't talk anymore post April that I talked to pre-April. And that's just facts. Everybody is, as life changes, as life evolves, not everybody's on the same wavelength as you are anymore. And I think one thing that you've got to decipher is, are you willing to spend time with people that are on that same wavelength? And if they're not on that wavelength, are they willing to talk to you and have conversations and try to understand why you're on the wavelength you are, individually? So I think that, to interject change, you got to have tough conversations with the people that can interject it. And it's going to be hard, but you got to find those outlets. It may be an email, it may be a tough letter, but you better come correct, because I can promise you, you're only going to get one shot, two max. So come the right way, and come in such a way that they can digest it, and comes from a place of pure heart, because it's tough. It's a tough juggle, but you got to be willing to lose something, and you got to come in the right manner.
Jacques over here dropping all the gems. I love that.
I guess kind of to just conclude our webinar, I just want to see if there's anything else that any of you guys just want to say before people start. I know we've had some participants start to head out, but if there's just anything y'all want to say, please feel free.
I just think if this is something that you all are passionate about, as Jacques said, do your homework, do your research, educate yourself. Don't let anyone put out your fire. Be the change that you want to see. We all have a huge, incredible opportunity right here in front of us. And, you know, when we look back 5-10 years later, what are we going to be able to say about ourselves? And not only are we doing this for us, but for our little brothers and sisters and our future children to come. We are the change, and we have to do it. And as Jacques says multiple times, the time is now. There's no better time than now.
I'll just say thank you guys for being on this, and please feel free to use me as a resource if you have any questions or just want to ask anything. I won't judge you. If you think there's something a topic you'd like to run by me before you present it to an organization or something like that, like I'm more than happy to lend my ears, anything like that. So I can probably give out my contact information, or I'll give it to Dr. Harden and he can give it out, but feel free to reach out to me and use us as resources as we're trying to navigate this.
First off, I want to say thank you so much to the two other people on this panel, man. It's just great to meet two female game changers, and I tell you what, two new friends running this road with me. So I'm just glad to be able to be on the panel with y'all, because the passion, the understanding is just, I'm beyond appreciative of it. And I'll say this, and I know we got more than Tennessee people on here, but my joke out here in LA is that in LA, we don't know Fight On, but in LA, they know Rocky Top. So Rocky Top is a national brand. And so, you know, if you're in this sport management program, take advantage of all the people that you meet. Take advantage of every course you get to take. And in this race, this DEI race that we're having, like, pick your lane, fight it, keep it small, and keep it targeted. And I'm more than willing to be an outlet for anyone on this call. You know, me and Dr. Waller, I have obviously stayed really close. That's my guy. And Dr. Harden has my information. So whatever you need, I'm always here to help evolve, always evolve, and thank the good Lord that I'm evolved.
And I guess on behalf of me and the other moderators and everyone in Partners in Sports, we really just want to thank you guys for taking the time today. I know you guys are very, very busy, but when it came down for all of us to kind of discuss which topics we want to do for our webinars, and once we got back to school, like, this was our number one topic. We really just want to make sure that, you know, the whole Tennessee community and everyone at UT is coming together. And as a second year graduate student, we have a lot of conversations just in our classes privately. But I think having this webinar, and for everyone who attended, let this be your outlet. This is the start of a conversation. You can have it with your classmates, and then you can have it with your roommates, and let that chain go on. And again, just thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to all of our participants. Our last webinar, we had close to 100, and we almost had 200 on this webinar.